right, so I'm finally sitting down to do individual song annotations. Part of the reason I've neglected to do this so far is because I feel like every time I listen, I am making new connections. I have been spending time and focusing on trying to understand how this fits into like the Taylor Swift universe, how this album fits into the Taylor Swift universe, before I make, you know, my final analysis that I then give to everyone. But who cares? I mean, I care, but I'm gonna act like I don't care. I'm gonna force myself to not care in effort to just get it done. So we're gonna start at the top, and we're gonna start with Fortnight. And what I'm gonna try and do, I have an old iPad here. What I'm gonna try and do is screen record and like annotate alongside my annotations. I don't know, we're figuring this out. Is super important about this song straight off the bat is that I think it acts as an overture to the entirety of the Tortured Poets department. It sets up certain references along the way, like especially in the bridge, the whole moving to Florida. We have instances of cars and obviously America, right? We have so many, for several albums now, we've had really strong English imagery and allusions, but now we're getting into American allusions because she's coming home, right? So I think in that regard, it plays a huge part as the overture for the album. It kind of sets up what we're supposed to expect. But also I think thematically, it's one that introduces the concept of subverted expectations. Right off the bat, the very first line, I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me. These, you know, parallels of things I was hoping for and things that actually happened. That's the whole song. Obviously, these lines come in verses, but they also can be read they can be read as couplets. And if we're thinking of this album very poetically, then we need to be thinking of each of these songs as poems. All of that to say, this sets the tone for the rest of the album. It's fun too. It's got Austin Post, aka Post Malone, on it, who I suppose she's been friends with for a while. Both have expressed their respect for the other artist, and of course he played opposite her in the music video, which was really cool. I haven't ever really been a big Post Malone fan just because I've never tried to be a big Post Malone fan, but after this I'm like, maybe I will listen in. All that. Gonna get into lyric by lyric now, and hope that this goes well. I'm a little nervous. So, very first two lines, this first couplet. I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me. This, right off the bat, makes me think of Hits Different. Is it you, or have they come to take me away? I think Hits Different is about someone in particular who was kind of the dark horse for this album. But also it sets up the theme of lunacy and craziness. They'll say I'm nuts if I talk about the existence of you, and down bad. Like, they've been calling Mad Woman, right? And then we have the Tortured Poets version of that in Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. And in the voice memos that she just released, she literally says, this is just a song about being crazy. So I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me. This again sets off the expectation was I was supposed to be sent away, but the reality is they forgot to come and get me. They were coming for me, but then they ended up getting distracted and doing something else. You know, however you want to read that, whether that's in a relationship. I was supposed to be, you know, sent all the way to the end of my life or down the aisle and be married, but instead they forgot that they cared about me, and, you know, now here we are. So I, you know, had my video about duality, and Fortnight really just encapsulates that so well. The duplicity of, you know, her character and, or the speaker's character and their experiences and the people about whom the speaker is singing. I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me. I was a functioning alcoholic till nobody noticed my new aesthetic. This has been a recurring theme, especially in Taylor Swift's later discography. People kind of saddled her with the like, oh, she's the perfect little girl next door or whatever, and now, you know, she has to deal with subverting that expectation. She's an actual grown person. She's in her mid-30s now. Like, She's an adult, come on. But also it's another thing, functioning alcoholic till nobody noticed my new aesthetic. That, you know, we expected that from her. This was just normal, and we think it's a joke, right? We think it's funny, but then she was like, no, like it's a problem. Not like, oh, haha, I was drinking. It was a functioning alcoholic, like it was an issue. And then we just took it. We're like, okay, great, haha, it's a joke. But to her, it's not. All of this to say, I hope you're okay, but you're the reason. Those 2 lines there is a perfect summation of the whole album. You know, all 31 tracks of music. I just wish you well. But also, you're the reason that I have a 31 song album and have felt all of these horrible things. The ability to pack so much into 2 lines is insane. One of my favorite poems is 2 lines, and I could spend hours analyzing it. I love poetry because it is by nature supposed to be brief. You want to say as much as you possibly can in as few possible words. Or every single word, even if you're writing an epic poem, every single word is meant to push your theme and push your tone, and every single word you choose is an intentional, deliberate choice. And that is what makes it so powerful, that it's not just like, oh, haha, I'm just gonna throw a word in here. It's incredible to be able to pack everything into 2 lines. Literally, if we could boil down all 31 songs, I would boil it down to these 2 lines. All of this to say, I hope you're okay, but you're the reason. No one here's to blame, but what about your quiet treason? So we have in the first line that it was a 2 graves, 1 gun situation, right? Both parties were at fault, both parties are responsible, both parties suffered the consequences. But you were the one who betrayed me. You were the source of the end. That both people were wrong here, but your quiet treason was ultimately the beginning of the end. Which is interesting because the no one here's to blame takes accountability. And I think that there are plenty of instances in this album, and plenty of other instances, Taylor Swift as a speaker takes accountability for just being human. Like we have Afterglow, I think is a huge one. Antihero saying like, this is what I've got. What are you gonna do about it? Ultimately, they were both failing themselves and each other. We can't point fingers, we're both at fault, except for this part. But I hope that you're okay. I think your quiet treason holds so much more than we were able to understand and unpack. Yes, we have 31 tracks of the Torture Poets Department to kind of piece it apart, but ultimately, that's not anything that we are ever going to be able to understand from her first person perspective. And for Fortnight There, we were forever. Run into you sometimes, ask about the weather. Let's focus on just, and for Fortnight There, we were forever. Initially, I was like listening and reading along with the lyrics on Spotify, and it had something like, and for a fortnight there we were forever running, run into you sometimes, or something like, and it wasn't very clear, like we were running forever, run into you sometimes, whatever. And then it updated and I was checking my sources elsewhere. And it's interesting because there's a slight enjambment here, at least musically, when it's written out, and for a fortnight there we were forever, run into you sometimes, ask about the weather, da 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 da. For a fortnight there, we were forever, run into you sometimes, ask about the weather. Like it kind of flows differently, and I'm not gonna sing it so it doesn't sound quite the same, but you know, you've heard it. But it kind of, the way that it's structured musically kind of glosses over the implications of this line. I think also we should talk about what a fortnight is. It's just a period of 2 weeks. If you were to say, and for 2 weeks there, we were forever, it's like, okay, it loses the gravitas. Also, it plays, using the word fortnight plays into themes of poetry and Shakespeare, whatever, like he's probably the most well-known poet. And so it is a stylistic choice, but also it holds the power of, for a short period of time, we were gonna last forever. In LOML, what we once thought was for all time was momentary, or however it's said specifically. So it's both to set the tone, but also just to say like, whatever it was, whether it was 10 years or 6 years or a month, it was too short, even though it felt like we were gonna be forever. And that again is an example of the subverting expectations. When we thought that everything was good and everything was forever, it really only lasted a very short amount of time. And that like warring of reality, and what do you do when you can't conceptualize time, you know, as a person, which everyone kind of struggles with or whatever. I have really strong feelings about Glitch, and I've had suspicions about it for quite some time. And I think if there was one line for me to be like, it's all connected, right? It would be run into you sometimes. Glitch, and yeah, we were supposed to be just friends. You don't live in my part of town, but maybe I'll see you out some weekends, right? They'll cross paths. And now, for that period of time, whatever length of time it actually was, it's reverted back into just awkwardly crossing paths. That crossing paths used to be the thing that was like so vibrant and exciting. For just one glimpse of his smile, maybe I'll run into you and maybe something will happen depending on which mood or situationship I'm in. Again, from Glitch. So it's back to the way it was. And that's a bummer. And we're gonna talk about the weather and pretend like everything's okay, even though I love you, it's ruining my life, even though I'm dying inside. Again, the subverting of expectations. Now you're in my backyard, turned into good neighbors, not good friends, not good lovers, I don't know. Again, the returning to the mundane, where now you're down bad, crying at the gym because you saw all these incredible things and now you're just hanging out. Your wife waters flowers. I think your wife waters flowers like in the backyard, in the spaces that we share, regardless if it's not a literal backyard, but they're still in close enough circles that wife is such like a searing addition. Because your wife waters flowers. She acts like everything is fine. She probably has no concept of everything that was between these two, which feels a little bit like Romeo and Juliet-esque, if Romeo and Juliet ended a little bit differently. So I said the thing about it feeling like Romeo and Juliet if it ended differently. That is incorrect, because it's not. What I'm thinking of is the houses in Romeo and Juliet that are like right next to each other and the neighbors hate each other. So let me just get that thing clear. It's not Romeo and Juliet I'm thinking of. It's Romeo and Juliet I'm thinking of. Where there's still so much tension between these good neighbors, but they're pretending everything's fine, and so then the wife is oblivious to everything and she's just watering flowers. But that insult of the mundane makes the speaker, I want to kill her. There might not be bad blood between these individuals, but there are a lot of complex feelings. All of this to say, I hope you're okay, but you're the reason. That we're just gonna keep going on, everything's gonna be fine, but also I wish you were both dead. In my favorite lines video, I mentioned this next one is my favorite line. All my mornings are Mondays, stuck in an endless February. At the time I had mentioned something about just being stuck. Like no one looks forward to Mondays. February is like a dull month. Also the contrast of we could leave the Christmas lights up till January. And now we're stuck in an endless February. There's no hope in sight for spring and warmth and summer. And so it's just a bummer. So I'm stuck on a Monday morning in February, watching you live your life in these shared circles, and it sucks. Time and place are such important parts to the Torture Poets department. The miracle move-on drug, I think, is more figurative than literal. You could hearken it back to the functioning alcoholism. You could, whatever personal vice, you could probably attach it to that, but I do think it's more figurative than literal. The effects were temporary. It was a miracle drug. It was supposed to fix everything, but it didn't last. The pain is so great that nothing can combat it. It could be over dramatic, especially in comparison to let's just talk about the weather, that nothing can heal this pain, is again another instance of duality. And that's just what we have to work with. And that when you're moving on from someone that you still kind of have to see or your friends are friends with, that's the reality of it, that it just kind of sucks. It's just weird and it sucks. And then we get into the huge, I love you, it's ruining my life, which was a main, tagline, promotional line for the album. I talked about my duality video is a very important line to representing the past and the future, right? Like I mentioned earlier, the subversion of expectations. I love you, we're gonna be forever, I'm miserable, I'm stuck in February, it's ruining my life. I can't get over this. I'm trying to get over it, but it still hurts so bad that it doesn't feel like I'm making any progress. I touched you for only a fortnight. This feels kind of guilty as sin. It's not I loved you for only a fortnight, I touched you for only a fortnight. That, am I allowed to cry? Or it kind of feels like the am I allowed to cry concept, where I was able to be close to you, I was able to feel you physically, I felt you and I held you for a while. It's different. Again, it's different in Glitch, I swear, are about this secret Torture Poets department narrative. And honestly, as I'm talking through all of this, there's only one person I have in mind. Nevertheless, it's not meant to be about one specific person. Meant to be about the experience of getting over and losing someone. Not meant to be about one person, but there's only one person I'm thinking of. So I touched you for only a fortnight. I didn't quite have you. You weren't mine to love, but I was with you. I was there. This next part repeats. For Fortnight There we were forever. Run into you sometimes, ask about the weather. I do have another note about good neighbors. That's like a weird relationship to have. Obviously this is figurative, but nevertheless it is a weird relationship to have. You see each other, you know each other's lives and their habits, their secrets and routines and the things that make them tick and their favorite, just like the little things that you know about somebody. But in just talking about sweaters and weather and, watering plants, you have to pretend and assume that you don't really know each other. Like you've eclipsed, right? But then also just when I watch you pull out of your garage every morning, I know exactly where you're going. I know exactly what you're gonna do, but I have to give you the neighborly decency of wondering, of I wonder what they're up to today, even though you know exactly what they're up to. I almost do, I bet you're sitting by your chair in the window looking out at the city. I know exactly what you're doing. I know exactly what you're thinking, but I'm just gonna keep talking about the weather because it doesn't matter anymore. Comment on my sweater, now you're at the mailbox. My husband is cheating, I want to kill him. This has got to be, I think I don't know. I think this is but again, I just imagine the I want to kill him is spoken and saying through gritted teeth. Haha, now I'm trimming hedges, oh, how's it going? Your wife's watering flowers, you're at the mailbox, we ran into each other, and then it's my husband is cheating, I want to kill him. That kind of thing. Where you have to pretend that everything's okay. You have to pretend this is the choice I made, these are the things, but also that's a huge piece of knowledge to bear, right? And to continue on pretending everything is fine, which comes to, I can deal with a broken heart that literally everything, I have to pretend everything is fine, but I am so depressed, but I act like it's my birthday every day. Again, the subversion of expectation, or the expectation is that she is happy and celebrating. The reality is that she's depressed and wants to die. Lights, camera, and smile even when you want to die. We get that. Again, we get that here. So then we have more of the refrain. I love you, it's ruining my life. I touched you for only a fortnight. And then we get into the Post Malone bridge, which I really like. And like I mentioned earlier, it kind of sets up some themes with Florida and cars in America, and cars have been tied to the first narrative, the expected narrative of the Torture Post Department for a while, all the way back to King of My Heart with all the boys with their expensive cars, with the Range Rovers and the Jaguars, and does crop up again a few times in Torture Post Department with the Aston Martin specifically. I've been calling you, but you won't pick up. Another fortnight lost in America. At first, I thought that the calling was the important part, but I think it's the whole line. In a similar notion to the good neighbors thing, I want to call you, but I know that you're not going to answer. I know that the boundary and the wall between us is too great that you're not going to relent. That we both have to try so hard to stay in our lanes that I can trust you to not call, which is also, kind of sad that you're not going to pick up even though I'm going to call. So that's both the okay, we have, we've come to our agreement, we're separated, we're creating separate lives, but then also the I've been calling out for you. I've been trying to get you to see my husband is cheating, I want to kill him. I'm trying to get you to see that I am struggling. I was a functioning alcoholic, but you won't pick up. You're oblivious, or you're purposefully ignoring me. Whether that is the speaker to the other side of this equation or the speaker to the listeners. It's a bummer. It's really a bummer. Another fortnight lost in America. I think of two in LOML, we embroidered memories of the times I was away, that maybe the physical separation is what was taking a toll, having to be in different places for an extended period of time. A fortnight, 2 weeks can be a long time, or it can be, another metaphorical, a figurative amount of time. Long distance and separation can be detrimental to people who I don't know, some people just aren't built for it. I'm not built for it. In a way, I also think that it's kind of, okay, so so long London, we've left England, we've come back to the Americas, to America. We have so long London, she's left England, she's come back to America. But I think maybe it's kind of like a wallowing, like another fortnight lost in America, like just waiting. I'm sitting in an airport bar, waiting, hoping that you'll return my call or that I will be able to finally move on. The reference to America sets the scene of change, that throughout the album of So Long London, Fresh Out of the Slammer, Florida, we're moving away from one thing and going into another. So we've set the scene for now this is taking place in America. This is taking place in a new environment. Get ready for a lot of things to change. Could be another interpretation of that. Florida, move to Florida, buy the car you want. We get that in Florida, which is so cool. I love that song. Buy the car you want, right? All right, I've just had another thought seed. Okay, so in The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, we have You Crashed My Party in Your Rental Car, which I think is mostly just like a diss. But I think You Crashed My Party in Your Rental Car, you couldn't commit. You couldn't commit to crashing my party. You couldn't commit to a car. Car is a metaphor for commitment and long-term, I don't know, showing up, I guess. That maybe this is less of like an admonition to the other part of this relationship and more of like a psyching oneself up. I'm gonna move to Florida, I'm gonna buy the car that I want, and then I'm gonna, figure everything else out. But then the next line, but it won't start up till you touch me. Okay, so first we have, but it won't start up till you touch me. And then at the end we have it, we won't start up until I touch you. Okay, so what I'm trying to get across is maybe buy the car you want is marriage. But first you have to be touched. You have to try first. It won't start up till you touch me. Buy the car you want. So maybe not marriage, but maybe like committing to a relationship, but it won't start up. It won't start up, right? So this thing between us won't start until we're together and you've touched me and I can feel the life that is in you and between us. So move to Florida, go to a new place in America. Buy the car you want. Choose a relationship that you want, not the one that has been stringing you along for the past 10 years or the one that has been off and on floundering and really struggling for some time. But first, we have to meet, we have to be together, we have to touch. It feels underbaked, but I did just whip it up. So yeah, this is a great one to start out with. Like I said, it feels like an overture, like prepping for the rest of the album. If there was anything else that you read out of this, engage in discourse. And I've had a new idea. I've had so many brainwaves. And I'm trying to put together another series of recontextualizing the discography with the lens of the Torture Pose Department. So I will kind of be doing those intermittently. I'm also moving in like a week and a half, and so things are a little crazy, but I can't stop thinking. So thanks for coming back. Bye.